much does your digital footprint actually reveal about you? I mean, if you're like most of us, you're probably just thinking about, highly targeted ads or maybe an embarrassing old photo from 10 years ago. But what if that exact same digital trail is at the absolute center of a really intense, modern dual reality? Because on one hand, the internet has sadly become this breeding ground for a deeply concerning wave of youth extremism. But on the other hand, it's enabled a massive law enforcement surveillance dragnet that is capable of tracking pretty much our every move. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to navigate the incredibly complex landscape of digital privacy in an era of unprecedented online radicalization. It really is a digital double-edged sword, and we're going to break down exactly how the whole shebang works. Here is a quick look at our agenda for today. First, the rise of youth extremism. Then we'll go inside online radicalization networks, look at tracking the digital footprint, examine the cost of surveillance, and finally, balancing safety and privacy. Starting with Section 1, the rise of youth extremism, a new kind of threat. Okay, so the FBI has actually had to create an entirely new classification for domestic terrorists, NVE, which stands for Nihilistic Violent Extremist. The old profiles just don't fit anymore, right? These aren't people motivated by your traditional political ideologies. Instead, they're inspired by this general hatred of society and a desire to cause total collapse through indiscriminate chaos and destruction. It's a completely different ballgame. And this threat, it's growing insanely fast. According to testimony from FBI leadership, there has been a massive 300% increase in domestic terrorism investigations. 300%! And a remarkably huge chunk of these new investigations are driven entirely by these NVE cases. But honestly, the most shocking part isn't just the ideology itself, it's exactly who is adopting it. Which brings us to Section 2, inside online radicalization networks from gaming to terror. So the crucial point here is understanding where these individuals are actually congregating. The FBI has designated specific, highly decentralized online networks as major extremist threats. A prime example is a network known simply as 764. This group is not only targeting youth, it's actually largely comprised of them. Think about that for a second. The FBI currently has over 350 subjects under investigation related to just this single network, and that spans across literally all 56 of their field offices in the United States. The chilling reality of these networks is who they're going after. Kids. We're talking about a 12-year-old boy whose mother just thought he was playing video games in his room, who was actually consuming violent extremist content so severe it led to a literal terrorism conviction. A 14-year-old Swedish boy was listed as a key co-conspirator known as Slain 764 in a U.S. federal indictment. And the founder of the entire 764 network, he was just 15 years old when he started the whole thing. Law enforcement is now heavily monitoring platforms that are super popular with kids, places like Roblox, Discord, TikTok, because unfortunately, that is exactly where this recruitment is happening. And this online radicalization builds into real-world action incredibly fast. Just look at this recently foiled plot. In March 2026, an extremist group formed on a TikTok channel. By early June, the parents of a 19-year-old Ohio man noticed he just dropped $3,000 of his graduation money on tactical gear and weapons. Obviously alarmed, they hit the nail on the head and called the police. The FBI moved in, searched his phone, and discovered this absolutely horrific plan to use explosive-laden drones and snipers to attack a UFC event on the White House lawn. The whole point of the attack was to spark a revolution. Thankfully, it was stopped just days before it was supposed to happen. Moving to Section 3, tracking the digital footprint, the surveillance solution. So, this is the other half of that double-edged sword. How do authorities actually unravel these plots before they happen? Well, when the FBI searched that Ohio suspect's iPhone, they didn't just find your standard everyday text messages. They pulled tactical plans, maps, drone launch points, and target lists from encrypted apps like Signal and Simplex. They dug into web browser histories and found the suspect was actually using political action committee donation websites to handpick specific lawmakers to target. And even beyond the physical devices themselves, law enforcement routinely relies on cell tower data to triangulate exactly where suspects are over time. But wait, how are they legally allowed to just access all this data? Well, there's been an incredible shift in surveillance law. Back in 1986, the Stored Communications Act basically protected physical landlines. If the police wanted to listen in on a call, they needed a warrant signed by a judge. Simple enough, right? But today, if you're carrying a cell phone, it is constantly pinging nearby cell towers just to function. Researchers over at the University of Michigan point out that because technology has evolved so drastically, vast amounts of our location data are now frequently accessed by law enforcement without a traditional search warrant. Section 4. The cost of surveillance, the Fourth Amendment complication. So how does the US Constitution fit into this modern digital dragnet? The real linchpin of modern surveillance is a legal concept called the third-party doctrine. Basically, it states that if you willingly give information to a third party, like, say, your cell phone provider, you no longer have a reasonable expectation of privacy for that specific information. By simply having your phone turned on in your packet, you are technically telling the phone company exactly where you are. Therefore, police have successfully argued they can just ask the phone company for your location data, completely bypassing the need for a judge to sign off on a warrant. And this is exactly what went down in the landmark Supreme Court case, Carpenter v. United States. An armed robber was tracked for 127 days straight using his cell phone data. The FBI didn't get a search warrant for that information. The agency literally just asked his provider, Metro PCS, for the records. Now, while it absolutely caught a criminal, it also revealed super intimate details of his private life. You know, like what church he went to, exactly where he slept every night. And that sparked massive debates about privacy rights for everyday citizens. And let's be totally clear here, cell phones are just the tip of the iceberg. The modern mass surveillance toolkit is unbelievably expansive. We're talking automated license plate readers, like those flock cameras you might see around town, that log literally every passing vehicle. It includes facial recognition in public spaces, internet service provider histories, and get this, even data pulled from personal health devices. In actual real-world cases, pacemaker data and Fitbit logs have been used by police as evidence to solve crimes. It's wild. Now, as you might expect, civil liberties advocates view this massive expansion with deep concern. The ACLU of Ohio, for instance, has strongly criticized the use of tools like flock safety cameras. Their stance is that no government, and no private corporation for that matter, can be trusted with that immense power. From their perspective, this level of unchecked surveillance threatens civil liberties, erodes our privacy, and can disproportionately lead to over-policing in marginalized communities. Which brings us to our final section. Section 5, balancing safety and privacy. Where do we draw the line? So how on earth do we reconcile these two incredibly compelling realities? The government finds itself caught in this profound legal paradox. On one side, federal agencies are issuing public service announcements claiming they're working tirelessly to protect kids from predatory adults in gaming chats. But on the flip side, because of the massive rise of nihilistic violent extremism we talked about earlier, they are concurrently investigating those exact same adolescent demographics as domestic terrorists. But here's the catch. Because of the First Amendment, being a radicalized child isn't actually a crime. You need a direct nexus to violence. This forces law enforcement to monitor the digital spaces where kids just hang out, which vastly expands the surveillance net over everyday teenagers. So what can we actually do? Experts and civil liberty advocates suggest a few key steps to empower the public. First up, we just have to fundamentally understand how much data our personal devices collect and share. Awareness is step one. Second, families need to recognize the very real warning signs of online radicalization, as we saw in that Ohio case. A parent's tip can literally save lives. And finally, communities can push for local oversight. Initiatives like Community Control Over Police Surveillance, or CCOPS, empower local residents to actually have a say in if and how these surveillance technologies are deployed right in their own neighborhoods. Which leaves us with this final, truly critical question to ponder. We know for a fact that the digital footprint is the key to stopping unimaginable plots organized by digitally native extremists. But we also know that the very mechanisms used to stop them are quietly eroding the Fourth Amendment privacy of everyday citizens. So, where should the line be drawn? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this structured look at the source material gave you a clear understanding of the absolute high stakes in our digital age. Until next time, keep asking the hard questions.